Hello my friends and welcome back to another video, and today I have a very special panel where today we are going to be discussing the women in the Second Age. And I thought to support me in today's video I'll be joined by three lovely ladies. But firstly I want to start off with girl next Gondor, really good name, aka Lexi. Hello my friend.
Hi guys.
Welcome. Also welcome to Helen, also known as the Clueless Fangirl.
Hello, lovely people.
Thanks for coming on. And finally, as all of you should know now, we have Nikki here. Hello.
Maigovan and Melanin.
So firstly, before we get into it, I think, Girl Next Gondor and Helen are both YouTubers as well, and I'll leave their links to their YouTube channels in the description below. I highly recommend you guys go and check them out. And also, check out, as always, Nikki's will be in the comments in the description below. So the title and topic of today's video are women in the Second Age, and you might be wondering why are we discussing this. Well, for example, already in the cast we have already 10 women, and that is more than maybe in the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies put together. I think we had, unless anyone want to help me, we had Arwen, we had Eowyn, any else? Tariel? Does anybody have any others?
Galadriel.
Galadriel, of course, Galadriel. That's 4, and yeah, I think that maybe that girl on the horse in the Two Towers, who was a sister. Maybe that's
Rosie and some female hobbits, from the Shire, like Rosie Cotton and these people. But minor roles.
Minor roles.
Yeah, mostly minor roles. They're all really supporting.
Really supporting, indeed. But it looks like that in this show we are going to be having a larger female presence, and of course that is fine and is going to be different, but a bit more different to how it was like in the Jackson film trilogy. So I thought it'd be interesting that in today's video that we could discuss this, as remember the Second Age is is it 3,300 years in length, so there's so much to discuss about regarding women in the show. So does that sound fine, everybody? Nikki, Helen, Lexi?
For sure, let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm excited.
Indeed. So I believe there is no better place to start off with than who could be the main character of the show. And I believe Lexi, I think personally, it's also been rumoured that an Eldian character which is going to be played by Morfydd Clark, who is basically Galadriel. So take it away, starting off. What do we know about Galadriel so far in the Second Age?
Well, the interesting thing I think about Galadriel in the Second Age specifically is that it's sort of a moment of transition for her character. If you've seen the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy, or if you've read the trilogy, you know that Galadriel comes off as this very wise but also kind of sad character. There's a lot of talk about the elves generally being a sort of diminished people. They don't have the same power that they had earlier in history. Now, in the First Age and in the time of the Two Trees, Galadriel was Tolkien describes her as an Amazon. She's very athletic, she's physically very powerful, she fights in battles, she wants to be ruler of her own people and of her own land. This is what inspires her to sort of rebel against the rule of the Valar and to depart from Valinor. And that's the rebellion that she gets tangled up in that kind of triggers her penitence later in the Third Age. So in the Second Age, what we're seeing is a Galadriel who still has that power. She's going to be potentially founding Lothlorien. She's going to be a political figure, possibly fielding an army. We know she travels quite a bit without any male escort. So she's going to still have that power and physicality, but at the same time, the First Age is over. There's definitely this sense that her power is starting to pass away, and she's starting to maybe learn that that sort of reckless arrogance is not ultimately going to be successful.
Indeed. Yeah, and I really liked how you highlighted about that transition period, because indeed that is from the First Age to the Second Age. Literally, the whole world has basically changed, half it has sunk, and it's interesting seeing how this would take Galadriel into the Second Age as well. So also, Helen, do you think that Amazon, as also another thing Lexi mentioned, was that Morpho Clark has said herself that she is doing lots of physical and combat work. So do you think we could see a more of a warrior like Galadriel in the Second Age?
Yes. So first of all, I want to add two things to what Lexi said. And I completely agree with what she said. And you have to remember what Tolkien said about her, because they're literally, if you read all the additional material, like Unfinished Tales, Lost Tales, like all the materials Tolkien wrote additionally next to the 3 Lord of the Ring books and Silmarillion, there are 3 to 4 versions of Galadriel. But one thing is always very, very clear, and he wanted people to know that she was second to Fëanor. Fëanor is the mightiest, the most powerful, the most, the best, the most powerful elf that ever was. And she is just second to him, but literally focusing on just. So she is so powerful. Fëanor no longer is. So that concludes in, yes, even if it's the Second Age, and yes, a bit of her power must have been diminished, maybe after the fall of Beleriand and all, and the world changing. But she must be so powerful. So of all the elves we see, and all the men, from the Gwaith y Myrddin, the ring forgers and all these elves, she still is the most powerful elf we will see. So I'm really excited, and maybe power means, yes, going to more physical combat. And like we grow older and wiser, maybe she learns, to use her power differently in like she does in the Third Age. But I can fully see how the description of, like her role is more physical, how that makes sense to me. And the thing is, she is one of the elves from Amanj, so she has seen the light of the trees. That alone makes her stand out, because these elves are so powerful by themselves. Having that light within them brought that to the world, to Middle Earth. And so I'm so excited to see. I'm not focusing on the young Galadriel or whatever. I want to see the power she has, and then when she gets the ring, it amplifies maybe even more, or focuses even more. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. The elves being my absolute favorite beings that Tolkien has ever created, as you guys probably already know.
Because you look like an elf.
Thank you. I do try with my cosplay and my ears. But yes, Galadriel is wonderful. She's a good character to have as one of the big leads. I'm looking forward to having like a strong female lead in a Tolkien-related story. For once. So that's going to be really cool. I mean, she's going to be growing up basically on the show, because even though she is, of course, already a young woman when we start this, she's still young in the eyes of an elf, and she's still learning. She's going to make mistakes. She's going to be arrogant and then learn from her mistakes. Her relationships, we're going to watch her relationships grow. She's going to become a mother. Maybe we get to see that. I hope we get to see that, because it's going to be a very interesting dynamic to the show. All of those challenges, I mean, we all know the story there and how it ended, and just seeing her go through all of this stuff and all of these emotions, it makes for an epic character arc that's just going to end with who she becomes in the Third Age. And I can't tell you guys how much I'm looking forward to seeing that. And with Morfydd Clark as well, she's playing, if she's actually playing Galadriel, which I think is absolutely 100%. Yeah. She's an amazing actress, so she's going to be able to carry this role the way it needs to be carried. So I have the utmost faith in her and in the show for that.
Indeed, and I think you've put that together perfectly. And I think before we move on, does anybody, I'm asking here to the panel guests, do you guys like hearing the phrase young Galadriel? Because I know that's a really heated, discussed thing. Do you think maybe going forward, maybe in trailers, in promotion, you'll be seeing, we're going to see young Galadriel in the Second Age? Do you think Amazon could use that in their marketing, even though, yes, she is technically younger, but how do you describe, or you have to really know the context behind her being a young Galadriel? Lexi, what do you think?
So, I don't really like the phrase young Galadriel. At this point, as a character, she's clearly a fully fledged adult. She's seen a lot already.
Indeed.
But at the same time, I can see how, again, in trying to sort of explain to an audience who's maybe coming from this, having not been exposed maybe to the Silmarillion or some of the Unfinished Tales, Book of Lost Tales material, maybe this is how they're going to try to explain to people, because I can definitely see people having a moment of dissonance when they are used to seeing Galadriel, sort of the more mystical elf queen whose power is more in her morality and her spirituality almost. People might be jarred by seeing a Galadriel with her hair tied up, as we know in the books it would have been, around her head, riding horses halfway across Middle Earth and swinging a sword around. People might erroneously think that this is some sort of huge departure from Tolkien's vision for this character, whereas I think it's probably part of it. And maybe to explain that, we could see young Galadriel or a younger Galadriel, but at the same time, yeah, I feel like I'm rambling, but at the same time, I really don't like that. I really don't like that name. It makes her seem like she's innocent, and I think the point is that she is very experienced and wise, even in the Second Age. She's seen the battle against Morgoth, who's evil incarnate.
I kind of feel like it's a good name for the beginning, because there are a lot of people who only know the movies, who haven't read the books, and who think of Cate Blanchett as Galadriel, and therefore they need to sort of explain it to them, to train them up, to make them understand who this character actually is, so that they don't, because people who haven't read the books don't understand the time span we're talking about here and how many years it is. So a lot of people could potentially be offended by the fact that Cate isn't playing Galadriel in the show, because it's wrong. It's not supposed to be, So for that, I think it's good to use it at the start. But then I think gradually, as the show goes on, it's going to just be, she's going to be known as Galadriel. They're not going to use young Galadriel in the future. It's just to sort of establish the understanding of it, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing is, look, if you would, it's just the elf factor that comes in. If you would hear a young King Theoden would be shown in a spin-off series, you wouldn't be mad about it. And if the actor would be recasted, I would be totally fine with it. I mean, I get where Lexi's coming from, but the thing is, a lot of European rulers and kings have been young ones, and, were a bit more foolish. And I do think we see that, because if you follow Galadriel's story, what she did in the Second Age, she was roaming around, and even in the First Age, she was roaming around a lot and didn't have her place, didn't know where to go. And just actually at the end of the Second Age and in the Third Age, she settled. I mean, she got married pretty late in the Second Age, and Celebrian came on also pretty late in the Second Age. So I'm not mad about the young. Again, like I said, if you would hear young Aragorn, I wouldn't be mad. I think that's fine, and I don't think anyone will refer to her in the show as, "Hey, young Galadriel, how are you?" No, that's not going to happen.
Hope not, considering she's probably older than all of the other characters. Even
exactly, she was born under the tree, in a month, in the years of the tree. So I mean, start counting, people.
Yeah, and the interesting fact is that the thing that I actually referenced a few weeks ago is that Morfydd Clark, who's going to be playing this quote young Galadriel, is actually older than Cate Blanchett was in 1999 during when she filmed her pieces for the show. So I just that I may add nothing to the conversation, but just an interesting trivia fact. Lexi, do you have anything to add on before we move on?
Nope, I think we're good.
Cool. Okay, so yes, we've talked about Galadriel, and I believe that I think we can see her as a compelling lead. Of course, there's also the theories and idea that this show could have an ensemble cast as well, and that could be entirely possible. And by having an ensemble cast, that means we're going to be looking all over Middle-earth and not just Region, not just Middle-earth, but also Numenor. And Helen, I think this is where we move swiftly on to you.
Now comes my time, people.
I think I worked perfectly on the segue, didn't I?
Yeah, well, do you want to talk about the casting and we go from the casting of that potential female to my theory, or do you want to talk about
Go for it. Go for the first bit.
Okay. Well, you introduce that. You know more about that. You know, I'm really bad with the casting thingies.
So
and then I'd pick up from there.
Is it Kari or Asta you wanted to specifically speak about? Which one?
The Asta, because I think that is the Numenorian queen
so,
we're talking about.
Asta, series regular, female, 50 to 59, open. Is an ethnic character, a major role for a well-established and powerful female actor in her 50s/early 60s. A high-ranking lady. We're looking for someone with real stature here. She's mighty but reserved. Also shows grace and humor. Series regular. Appearance, the character portrayed is a diverse female. So Helen, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can't put my finger on who exactly she is. Well, we know there were more Numenorian queens, and maybe before we come to who I suspect she plays, because I still think we will see in the show the Forging of the Rings. When was the Forging of the Rings? The Forging of the Rings was around 1600, so 1600 Second Age. I think the 3 rings were ready in 1590 something, and I think Sauron then forged the 1 ring in 1600. So that gives us a time span around the second ruling queen, Tar-Telperien. And if you guys have anything to add, please, because I'll keep rambling on now. But please be free to interrupt me or say anything if you think different, because I think Lexi especially also knows a lot about the Numenorian queens and also has something to say. So that would be the second ruling queen, and her name was Tar-Telperien. And sorry, my cats, they are very loud. Excuse-moi. Well, she lived around, she ruled from 1556 till 17 something. So she was the ruler of Numenor around the time when the ring was forged. And I do think that's her, because she actually would be around that age. I mean, I don't know how loose they can play with the numbers when she ruled, when she was born, but I think, a few years, I wouldn't be mad about it, because it could still fit the description. And well, her story and the story of the Numenorian queens is so cool. I mean, it's very sad, because if you, I don't want to drag this on too long, but you must know that Elros was the first king of Numenor, and he always had his descendants were always the firstborn children were always males. So there was no need to make a law or rule that either the firstborn child becomes king or queen or the firstborn son. And then came the question, and there was actually the founder of the House of Aragon. She should have been queen. Her name was Silmarien. She was the daughter of the 4th king Tar-Elendil, and she was passed over for the boy. And this is actually where I personally think it got wrong, and you can see that in the way Tolkien talks about the family dynamics changing. Couples become, they start arguing, they start quarreling. Couples no longer love each other. There are loveless marriages amongst Numenorians. You never heard of that before. So it is really interesting that with her passing on, with the line passing on, Silmarien, who is the ancestor of Aragon, so her line is called the Faithful. So I mean, that alone should tell you, okay, that was actually, they should have been the kings and the rulers, but she was passed on. So the second queen, Tar-Telperien, well, her story is actually sad, and all these female rulers were unfit to rule. They didn't care for ruling. They often had their nephews or sons or whoever rule for them. They had them fight the wars for them. And yeah, it's the same story here, and I find it super fascinating, and I want to learn more about that. Like that line of Elros, that epic elf, the twin brother of the elf we know, Elrond. So it's cool. So that line diminishes, and that things change for the mighty Numenorians. So I really love that, and I want to see that. And I think personally she could be that cast. It would fit time-wise. It would fit into the canon they want to introduce. And yeah, I just want to see more about Numenor. And I think Lexi wants to chip in now.
Yeah, no, I think I think you hit the nail on the head. I think when I read that casting call for Asta, really Telperien's the one who jumps out. The fact that she is an older actress, probably. So basically, that rules out the possibility of her being an elf, since elves don't really show their age. The fact that she is so powerful and with the stature and the grace and the humor suggests that she's very high-ranking. We know that the Numenorians have a very sort of elegant and elevated culture. So that leaves us with probably some sort of high-ranking Numenorian woman. Silmarien, as you said, not a lot, unfortunately, to be said about her, other than that she is the ancestress, if that's a word, of the line of the faithful. So the remaining queens, I think we have Ankalime, who does not seem to me to fit this character description. Ankalime is kind of a wayward, stubborn individual. I don't see her showing a lot of grace and humor or reservation.
No, and I think it's too early.
Yes, that's the other thing. I think that's too early. And then Miriel is probably right out, who would have been the last ruling queen. That would be too late, because that's near the very end of the Second Age and near the end of Numenor. So that leaves us with Telperien, or the only other ruling queen that we have any information on is Vanimelde, and she's also she's a bit of a party girl, from what it sounds like. So she wouldn't really fit the description either. I think in terms of the timeline, the historical events that are going on, it just all signs point to Telperien.
Indeed, and I think both of you have summarized that quite well. And I was always thinking, so I think someone's mentioned this to me before, that maybe you could potentially in Numenor merge some maybe some characters together and have a character that lives equally maybe as long, and merge what they do together to help fit the time span and time frame. And maybe that's one of the devices that Amazon is using in order to cope with this such long life. But that's just one of the theories I made up. And also, Nikki, I think unfortunately none of the casting descriptions for Kari or Asta fit you, unfortunately. Unless tomorrow you're a 50 to 59-year-old ethnic. Maybe change.
You know what? Actually, it's funny because I stumbled upon the audition scripts at some point early on when I first discovered that they were actually making this, and I was like, man, I need to get on this show. So I dug deep and I found them like in a forum within a forum within a forum. And the first audition tape that I recorded was for Kari, before they actually had this description, which they have now. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't that specific at that stage. I never sent it in, of course, because I didn't even know who to send it to. But I did it to see if I could. And of course, I can see now that, of course, although the age is 30 to 39, I don't think the description actually... I've been told that I can't really play, for instance, a mother, because even though my age is 32, I look younger. So could be a challenge. But you know what? I want to be an elf anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah.
I so get you. You're the Vanya. I'm definitely the Noldor.
Oh, yes.
But I have another theory about that character, which is not a Numenorian queen. And hear me out, people. So I'm actually a fan of this whole, we have diverse characters. I don't give a about skin color and all that. Please just be a good actor. But what I really liked is what I think Nikki or you Fellowship said in the beginning, that finally we have a female lead character, obviously in Galadriel. But a theory of mine, and it could be not happening, and I wouldn't be mad about it, is that this character or any other character could be something like an Amazonian queen, and we could see that. So we could see something like an Easterling female ruler or an Easterling queen. Why do they all have to be men? I mean, it doesn't. We have Numenorian queens, so this is possible for the men. So why would it be different on land in Middle Earth? I don't see that. And we even have later in Gondor, when the houses split up and they founded the kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor, there are even later on, yes, they have to marry, to keep the throne, but there are also Gondorian queens, basically. So why can't we have an Easterling queen or something like that?
It would be interesting.
Yeah, I would be so here for it. And I recently rewatched the 2 Wonder Woman movies, and as you can see in my icon, I'm a big Wonder Woman fan. And I really loved the Amazonians, and the history, and I love Greek mythology. And you could get in a race. We don't even know, because Tolkien left it open. He didn't say, I give you all the details about the whole world. No, he didn't. It's like, what's west of Westeros? It's the same question, and maybe we could get something like Amazonians. So to get this female warrior type that was hinted at in Eowyn and in Tauriel, right? And it would be so cool if we get, it doesn't have to be a big storyline, but just to see it, and epic images. I'm a visual person. I can imagine are they the baddies? Do they help in the fight against Sauron? Who knows? But it would be cool, and it could also fit this description.
Indeed, and I think...
Yeah, you know what I find interesting though with this casting? Sorry. I just cut you off, but I find it, because it says here, serious, regular, female, 50 to 59, and then it says she's mighty but reserved, also shows grace and humor, and it says a major role for well-established and powerful female actors in her 50s and early 60s. And when you look at the cast, you see some powerful older female actors and actresses here, but I don't know if I would call them well established, as in the only one I can see with a big IMDb list would be I don't know if I'm saying this name right, but Thusista J Sundera. I don't know if I'm saying that name right, but
Sundera, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah. She has a pretty big list of experience, which is amazing. But I mean, they could have gone back on it. They could have just chosen based on the power of the actual actor and not the list of experiences. But I think it will be interesting to see, because it sounds like it's a really intense character, and it will strongly depend on the actor's ability to carry that character with the power and the humor and the sort of motherly feel. But I was also thinking it could be the wife of one of the kings, so it doesn't necessarily have to be one of the reigning queens, as in queen, but it could be a wife of one of the kings.
Indeed, and Lex, do you want to...
Right, if I can just kind of circle back, going off of that and going off of some of what Helen said earlier, there's certainly a lot that Tolkien didn't really discuss concerning, distant realms and things that he hints at. There's also stuff that he sketches, examples of matriarchal clans in For example, the first stage, the people of Haleth have an unmarried queen as their sort of warrior Amazonian ruler. She has like a squad of all-female bodyguards. So there's plenty of room, even within what Tolkien has described, for societies on Middle-earth, not necessarily just on Numenor, where women would potentially hold that sort of political and military power.
Yes, and even the elves appreciated Haleth. Like, she was so renowned as a warrior, and so, you know, they accepted her amongst, you know, their ranks and everything. So I think they offered her land and everything. Was it Thingol? I do not remember, but some, you know, some ruler, elven ruler, offered her lands and to come and live near his lands or something. Like, it's been a while, but yeah, that was Caranthea, yes. Yeah, so that's so cool. Yeah, makes total sense. And I just want to add to the wives of the king thing Nikki just mentioned. It would be cool, because what did the male line do? What did the line do? They married into the line of Silmarien. I mean, you can question that now, you know, they're all pretty close related, but hey, that was going on in our real life, you know. And Tolkien says the kings often took a wife, and this happened later on. And this was actually why, you know, the downfall was pre-programmed, because one of the kings married a wife, a female from the line of the faithful, from Silmarien's line, and she was a faithful in secret, and she taught her son, her eldest son, who later became king, you know, to get back to be with, you know, be a good king, and to talk to the Vala again and all that, and so for a little time the downfall stopped, actually, but it was too late. So it is really cool, because it could then additionally show us the line of the faithful, and with that queen he marries into, or that female he marries into, the king marries into. So that would be actually also,
yeah, I would love
interesting.
that. I would love to see that part of Numenor, you know, the darkness and the disagreements and the, like, almost religion, like the faithful versus the king's men and all of that, and the distrust the Numenorians have towards the elves, towards the Valar, all of that. Yeah. Because I think it would make for a really good dark side of Numenor that we need to see, because the Numenorians are described as these amazing creatures, right? And then they behave like it too, but they have a bad side, and that's the reason for their downfall. So
and the approaching death, you know, you can see it in the kings diminishing. Their lives get shorter and shorter, and they even have, it's very similar to literally Game of Thrones, like the description, you know, how these doctors, they try to find doctors to prolong their lives, to find the key to immortality. It's so cool how the days darkened, how Tolkien describes it. The shadow is falling on Numenor. I want to see that in the show, like, you know, debauchery. They built temples of doom. They started to burn people, like all that. It was a promised island, and then that happened. So I so want to see that. It's
Yeah, I think all three of you have given a case of how great it is to see all these potential things Amazon can do to incorporate Numenor within the show. And I think so far we've touched upon Galadriel, we've talked about the Numenorian queens, and of course we've got more established characters to go on to in a bit. But firstly, one thing that we're going to have to discuss at the same time are Amazon original female characters. And I want to firstly start off with Lexi. What's your opinion what Amazon can do with maybe some new characters, original characters that we've never seen before, and maybe some drawbacks, maybe some examples?
Yeah, so when I think about adaptations trying to create original characters, and specifically because this is a question that always comes up with Tolkien original female characters, the example that comes to mind is Tauriel from the Hobbit films, which I think it's safe to say that she was kind of a polarizing experience for a lot of people. And I think it's sort of it's interesting to examine maybe why she is so polarizing, because the Hobbit trilogy, of course, is so packed with characters that are Tolkienian. We've got 13 named dwarves. We've got Bilbo and Gandalf. We've got Galadriel and Elrond in there. And then we have Thranduil and Legolas, who of course don't appear in the Hobbit books, but we know are characters from Middle-earth. And then we have Tauriel, and I like the idea of a Tauriel character because, of course, from Tolkien's writings, we know that at least among the Eldar, it was not necessarily that unusual to see females fighting alongside men. I think he even says something like, apart from the actual birthing of children, there wasn't anything that was considered impossible for a female elf to do compared to a male elf. They didn't have any sort of physical strength or really ability differences for Tolkien. So that part of Tauriel's character, the fact that she's a war leader, and no one really makes a big deal of that in universe, that's quite accurate to the lore as far as I can tell. The thing that I think was a little bit unfortunate was that a lot of people were maybe uncomfortable with trying to establish a credible sort of romance triangle subplot in a film that was already so packed with different subplots. I don't think they necessarily did the character justice. But something like a Tauriel type character, I think, could be. We know that these female characters existed. We know that there's a lot of male characters that existed who were, not as maybe politically powerful, but still had interesting stories or important smaller roles to play and had their own sort of lives and backstories. So I think exploring those characters, regardless of whether they're male or female, just telling more of those stories that we know exist within the Second Age is going to be hopefully an opportunity that Amazon seizes, makes the most of, and kind of fleshes out a real character and doesn't worry so much about trying to fit in, making everyone have a romance arc or making one character be everything to everyone, as it were. And I think other people might have some thoughts and feelings on that as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. I actually really enjoyed Tauriel as a character because she was, not only was she played really well and she was made really well, but the storylines, yes, unfortunate. But I thought it was a breath of fresh air in a otherwise completely male-dominated cast. When it comes to this show, I have a few thoughts on how they could do it. I mean, Tolkien has all of these characters that are basically just mentioned by name, and then nothing else is known about them. And I think Amazon can easily take those and the little that they know about them and flesh it out and make it more interesting and embed them into the story. I also think because we're going to be seeing a lot of powerful women like queens and wives of kings, and they might have handmaidens, they might have servants, they might have friends, there's the elves, there's Galadriel, she might have had friends, she might have had because when we see them in the movie, it's not so important to understand their personal circle, but when we're watching a character grow and develop throughout several seasons that stretch out through several episodes, we're going to have to see the people they interact with on a daily basis. Otherwise, the character isn't going to grow because they're not going to come in contact with other people that will make them grow. So we might see that. We might see maybe there's a female elven smith that helps to make the rings. Maybe see female dwarves because they existed, but we've never really seen them before, have we? So maybe that's about time they do something about that. And the Easterlings, of course, something like maybe that's more female dominated. So they have storylines there that Tolkien has barely mentioned that they could expand upon. So I think there is a lot of potential there that they can expand on without it becoming an issue for Tolkien fans, because they're not actually changing the major part of the story. They're just fleshing it out with characters that you like and enjoy. They did the same thing in Game of Thrones, where they had all of these characters that were around the main characters that you fall in love with and that eventually become a big part of the storyline, but doesn't really change it in any major way. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there for Amazon to have a little bit of fun. I'm just looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
Well, I still want my Amazonians now. But kidding aside, the thing I didn't like about this discussion was when, before we kind of knew who played Sauron, because the thing is, Sauron, for people who just knew the movies, yeah, I mean, it was implied he was male, but then the thing is, the Maiar don't really have a gender. I mean, they are shown an agenda, and they choose for us when they choose to be visible for us. They choose a gender, right? Even the Valar do, the gods, the demigods. But the thing is, I didn't like the discussion of people saying Sauron needs to be female now. That was something I didn't like, because what I don't want to happen is, just for the purpose of, we need half of the cast, half of the male leads now need to be female. I don't want that. That wouldn't be, and I think most of the women agree, we don't want to be given something, talking about feminism and all these things.
So maybe
I don't want
forced
to be...
is a thing often said as well.
Yeah. I want it to be natural, it has to fit, like Nikki says, that there are so many side characters you can develop, and it makes sense, but please don't force something on somebody, because, sorry, Sauron is male for me, and I found it weird if it would be played by a female. And just, I don't know, I wouldn't have liked it. I don't know how you guys.
Yeah, if I can just, female Tolkien fans are first and foremost Tolkien fans. Mostly what we want to see, I think, is more of Tolkien, both, all the characters, especially the ones that he maybe didn't get to flesh out as much.
And the thing is, many people always say, he wasn't into female lead characters. The thing is that he gave Galadriel this many thoughts, that he developed her and pre-developed her and then went back and reshaped her, just shows how important she is for him and in the Legendarium that he included, because in the end this is a story about war. In Tolkien's time, women didn't go to war, but he included somebody like Eowyn. I mean, how epic is that? So for me it doesn't, I have so many arguments against people, who say, well, he wasn't interested in female lead characters, in female characters. He was, if you have a closer look at the story. Yeah, and I love that, yeah.
I believe, you've all, I think, said that again, that at the end of the day, we just want what's best for Tolkien's adaptations. We want the best to portray his image through on screen. And of course, maybe sometimes it'd be nice to see more, of course, female characters in the adaptation version. At the same time, we don't want it to be just, as I think Helen rightly said, maybe a bit too forced. I think that's the best way to say it, or maybe that they are like trying to put a point too much forward to us, that yes they are, yes, this is a woman, she is killing 5,000 orcs, because maybe that would be a bit too far. Because I always joked about, have any of you seen the Wheel of Time thing so far, the advertisements with the 5-second teasers with their characters? Has anyone seen them?
Yeah.
No.
So who said no again?
Me.
So
I haven't seen them.
So it's basically what Amazon are doing. I think they'll do similarly for for Lord of the Rings on Prime, is that they get a character from their book, they make them do, it's probably some random stunt that the character does, then they see the most over the top line. It's just, I personally think it's cringeworthy. I can see what Amazon are going to do. The first thing that we're going to get is probably Galadriel in a forest fighting off 5 orcs, saying the most overpowerful line, or maybe just Elrond just, I don't know, somewhere, and just saying just these over the top things. And maybe that's the thing that I want Amazon, I know this is, I don't know where this fits in with the conversation, but it's a personal thing that I just want it just stuff to be toned down as well. So yeah, but anyways, let's go back properly to the source material as well, and we have Celebrian. And I think, Lexi, would you like to take this away? So for viewers at home who don't know too much about what happens, first of all, who Celebrian is and what happens to her in the second age, just a brief overview.
All right. We don't. There's not a ton of information about Celebrian, unfortunately. We know that she is the daughter of Galadriel and Celeborn, born sometime in the Second Age. So, I mean, if we can extrapolate from that, Celebrian, her name has the element silver in it, like her father Celeborn, so she may have sort of the silver or silvery gold hair of either of her parents' kindred, if we're trying to think of how characters might be portrayed. And as Galadriel is kind of moving around Eriador, of course, Beleriand, which is where Galadriel and Celeborn previously lived, has been sunk into the ocean, so everyone's sort of milling about and trying to find a new homeland. And we know that Celebrian and Galadriel travel sometimes without Celeborn, and depending on, again, what timeline you're on, what version of Tolkien's drafts you want to go with, they do end up in Imladris, where, of course, this is where Elrond is setting up his realm, and Elrond and Celebrian end up getting married in the Third Age, and Celebrian is the mother of Arwen and of Elrond's forgotten sons, Elrohir and Elladan. And she eventually sails in the Third Age. So we have potentially there, this is just what we were talking about earlier, a character that Tolkien, we know exists. We can extrapolate some probably pretty likely guesses, I would think, as to her character, based on what we know she does, where she lives, who she travels with, who her parents are. And we know that we have a canonical romance set up. We have means, motive, and opportunity, if you will. So this could be an example where they take a character that we know exists. I don't think any purist would argue with depicting Celebrian in the Second Age. We know she has a romance. We know that she probably has some sort of agenda of her own, maybe not as fiery of temper as her mother, but certainly a strong-willed female character who could potentially be very interesting.
Indeed, and I think at this point I want to start getting into the more controversial and speculation part, because I believe we still do need to talk about this, and this involves Celebrian and Galadriel. So in the show, I'm sure they're going to want to have some romance plots, even though we said, I think Lexi rightly pointed out, maybe for The Hobbit, having that love triangle with already so much happening could have been quite just off-putting, or maybe just didn't feel quite right with so much happening. But I think with Amazon and the show, if each episode is rumored to be an hour long or something like that, if we do get 8 episodes and 5 seasons, there's going to be a lot more time to build things through. And of course, they're going to try and get love and romance into this. And there's been lots of just out no speculation, nothing behind it. But do you think that Amazon could go away where, for example, before Galadriel gets with Celeborn, she could go with someone else first? Maybe someone said Celebrimbor, and maybe Amazon could go down that route. Who wants to tackle this one? Are people for this, or do you think this is probably not the best?
I can. Well, the thing is, that really depends on where the show actually starts, right? Because, is it going to start at the point where they're actually together? We know that Galadriel is, in theory, in elf years. I guess she's still quite young and inexperienced in one way, and then that she still has a lot of learning and growing to do, so she might be flirting with others, but I don't think that we will see so much of that, but we might see the romance of them two. I do think that they should, of course, have romance in the show, and I think as long as it's right and it's well placed and it's not something that's completely not canon at all, I think it's nice, because what are the reasons why we watch TV shows? What are the reasons why we watch movies? It's to feel something, right? So feeling romance, feeling love, feeling the euphoric feelings of it, and getting excited about characters coming together, whether you know their storyline or not, it's a beautiful thing, and it's something that Amazon has the right to use because it will generate a lot more attention and interest in the show. They just have to do it tastefully, and not like unnecessary storylines, unnecessary nudity just for the nudity's sake, stuff like that. But I think just like there are many beautiful love stories in Tolkien, he just doesn't elaborate as much on them in the books as Amazon potentially can. So I think it will be interesting to see like growing romances and even characters that are not actually mentioned as much in the books. Original Amazon characters, stuff like that. I'm open to that.
I mean, if I can add here, he literally has a standalone book. Well, his son published it with Beren and Luthien, which is basically one of the most beautiful love stories ever written. And if you know, him and his wife have those names engraved on their tombstone. Yeah. So just saying, so he was totally, but you're completely right, Nikki. But the thing is, he wrote about war. And the focus is on other things like friendship. Yes, love is a part of that. But the love between men and women often had to stand back. And he knew that from experience, being in war, not being able to be with his wife, just sending her letters and all that. But an idea I always wanted to play out is because I love the character of Celebrimbor, and we don't know that much about him. So I mean, it's not canon, but she was there at that time. Galadriel was in Eregion at that time, and there could have been something like a love triangle between her, Celeborn, her then later husband, and Celebrimbor. And maybe this was, and I wouldn't be mad about it if they show that in a, like weird way. But why did she leave? Yes, she wanted lands of her own. The king of Lothlorien died, and she then, could take over this already established realm of elves. So it all made sense. But why did she leave? I mean, Sauron was there, and the Gwaith Amirdain, the forgers, the smith there, the guild of the smith of the elves. I think they were pro-Sauron during a time, and I think Galadriel always knew something was off. She didn't know who he was, but she knew something was off, and maybe she went because of that. But maybe this love triangle thingy could also be a reason, and they could portray that in a nice way that's not like icky, but I wouldn't be mad about that, even though it's not canon. Tolkien doesn't specifically say, but he doesn't say it wasn't. So
yeah, there's even a hint of that in some of his discarded drafts, where he has Celebrimbor actually professing his love to Galadriel, and Galadriel at that point is already paired up with Celeborn, and of course can't really reciprocate, but Celebrimbor creates some things for her. There's even an argument that one of his inspirations for working on the rings and working on things like the LOTR was his love for Galadriel, that he was apparently confessed to her, but knew that he basically didn't have any hope. And that would thematically, I think, potentially be relevant, because we know that if Celebrimbor is the grandson of Feanor, and Feanor and Galadriel have their infamous rivalry, but at the same time, Feanor clearly is inspired, let's say, by Galadriel. So this tension between them, the sort of mutual resentment, but also the mutual respect and even affection, longing, what have you, could be an interesting angle to play with in the film. And like I said, at one point Tolkien is straight out considering having Celebrimbor be one of Galadriel's votaries, if you will. I agree that they would need to make it be tasteful. I don't think you could convince Galadriel to cheat on Celeborn.
No, oh my god, I don't want to see that. But as you said, it could completely mirror the creepy uncle and Galadriel storyline of Fëanor and Galadriel. I think that there were different reasons he asked her, but it's so cool. You could also play with the thing, like Gimli asking her for her hair, and her uncle, a blood relative, who asked her for her hair, and she didn't give it to him, but then she gave it to a dwarf, and a mortal enemy of elves. So that tells you a lot, and it would be cool because, as you said, Celebrimbor, in fact, is the last living descendant of that royal line of the Noldor. He's the last living descendant of Fëanor, and you could argue, he should be High King and not Gil-galad of the Noldor in Middle-earth. So that is so cool, and I mean, yeah, I would be here for it. I wouldn't be mad if they show that, again, love story that couldn't be, and her then choosing Celeborn. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that, of course, as we have summarized, that Amazon do have can maybe not make up lots of stuff, but use stuff like, as Nikki mentioned, character names that Tolkien did reference, didn't say too much on, but we can still build upon them as well. So hopefully that's being portrayed as well. But now, as we wrap up, I think does anybody here on the panel have anything else they want to desperately want to add before we wrap up?
No, it's all good.
I think we've hit most of the main points.
Helen?
Yep.
As I know you
Nope.
always. Ooh. Okay. So before we wrap up, I just want to just get away from the topic now for a bit and just go to this. So first I'm going to start off with Lexi, then I'll go to Helen, then I'll go to Nikki. So Lexi, just one thing, this is nothing got to do with the topic of today's video, but what one thing are you most excited about seeing in the Amazon Lord of the Rings TV series? Just one thing. It may be something that not a lot of people maybe talk about. Maybe, yeah, that's a better thing. An underrated thing that you can't wait to see in the show.
Well, like Nikki, I am Team Elf, and I am a huge Elrond fangirl. So, I mean, I just would really love to see his little angsty, nerdy self given some good lines, and yeah, I think more Elrond, please. I wouldn't mind seeing more Gil-galad either. I am Team Elf, Team Noldor all the way, so I hope we get to see some of that.
Indeed, and I hope to see some else here, and I'm sure we have the opportunity to see so many, as I can name off the top of my head. We've got Celebrimbor, we've got Círdan. I think who can rival Galadriel being one of the oldest in Middle-earth at this time. We have so many to look forward to. But then moving on to Helen.
Well, obviously I'm Team Elf, people, but my secret crush, are the baddies. And what do I want to see? I want to see two things. I'm cheating here a little bit. First thing, I want to see hot Sauron, and I still try to make this thing trending. And then second of all, I want to see the ring raids being turned, because that also happens in this timeline. He didn't just forge these rings or made the elves forge the rings, he gave them out, and he turned former good kings and rulers. And I want to see, because there will be Numenorian kings who became ring raids, and I do have a pretty cool theory video about who the Witch King actually is. I want to see those good people being turned by Sauron and the rings of power, and I so want to see that. That is something nobody's actually talking about, but it happens in the same timeline. So, and them showing up for the first time, because we have an actual date from Tolkien when they show up for the first time. So, and it could totally fit within here. So yeah, that's what I want to see in my baddies.
Yeah, and I do hope you do get to see that side develop more of the baddies, as you said, and also evil in the show. And also, I think Sal mentioned earlier as well, when we're seeing like the faithful versus the Kingsmen, all that happening in Numenor during that time would be so epic to see on screen, really is. And then finally, Nikki, do you remember the question?
I do, cool. And of course I agree with both you girls. And as we talked about in a few of our podcasts as well, like the Nazgul, like I'm so excited about that. I would love to see there's nothing more intense than watching good people fall into darkness or be deceived into darkness. It's one of those things that in fantasy, it's just something that you want to see. You want to see them struggle with both the dark side and the light side. I guess a bit of a Star Wars reference there. But you guys all know I am Team Elf, but I'm also an actress, and as an actress, I am obsessed with character arches. I'm obsessed with growth. I'm obsessed with finding characters that are so good that you almost just want to sit in front of the TV from one episode to another, and you don't want to move because you're just waiting for the next development in the storyline. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting attached to the world, the storylines, the people, and also the aesthetic, like just diving into the world of Tolkien and watching all these beautiful worlds come to life, these beautiful cities, these beautiful people, looking at the costume designs. I mean, this is going to be the television production of like the century. I feel like it's going to be massive proportions. They're putting so much money into this. It's going to be huge, and I am looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
Should I, very firstly, very beautifully said, and should I team up with Helen so to level the playing field out, and I'll go team villain as well? So we have Lexi and Nikki on team Elven and me and Helen on team villain. Nah, I'm only kidding. Okay. But firstly, then just to wrap up now, Lexi, first of all, who are you and where can people find you on YouTube? What type of videos do you do?
Yeah, I'm Lexi, but my channel name is Girl Next Gondor, all one word. I also hang out on Twitter, same handle, and I'm a very, very tiny channel at this point. Started off strong and still growing pretty quickly. I'd faster than I thought we would. And we focus on doing a video a week or thereabouts, where my goal is really to try and take the lore, the deeper lore, and explain it in a way that actually makes it relevant, gives context to the events of Lord of the Rings or Silmarillion or even the Prime series. Really make it accessible, and not just there's so many great videos out there that show overviews and give you the information of what happened and who is where when. So my goal is to sort of play off of that by showing you why it's relevant both in universe and out.
Perfect, and of course her links will be in the description below. And then same with you, Helen.
Yes, hello. First of all, Girl Next Gondor, what an epic name.
Really hard. Hours and hours coming up with that one.
Oh my god, I love it. Yeah, well, I choose my name wisely as well, so people don't come at me if I'm wrong with a date or something like that. So yes, my channel's name is The Clueless Fangirl on YouTube, and just like Lexi and like Fellowship, I do videos, partly lore videos on the wider Tolkien universe, I would say. I mainly focus on first and second age, so Silmarillion material, but here and there I do third age as well. And I do have a pretty, I think like 9 videos already, a pretty cool Numenor playlist I can advertise here for everybody who wants to know more about the civilization, who were the kings and queens, stuff I talked about, and I try to explain it. And once every 2 weeks I try to have something like you are doing here with people of the community, with other content creators. And I've been doing this since over a year now, and it's so cool and fun how to get to know all these people. And we are now we are a fellowship 2.0, and we're actually all friends, and I love that because I've seen other communities. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I like Star Wars I just love Star Wars. I read all the books, and I'm a big fan, but that community can be toxic sometimes, and that's not that's not what Lucas would have wanted, and that's not what Tolkien would have wanted. And so I love this community and the spirit and the love we all share for these stories. And I think you can feel it in things we all do, and that we invite each other and like talking and we advertise. It's not like you're working against me or we're doing the same
no.
video. We actually, we help each other, and I really love that because it's in Tolkien's spirit. And so I love this community. I'm very happy. I'll have Nikki on my channel soon talking about something similar. We said, let's do something female related, and obviously I have fellowship planned for something very special regarding Numenor as well. He doesn't know yet. And obviously, Lexi, I can see you are just like me, a total book nerd of the extended material. So obviously, I want to have you on as well. And next week, I have a super cool guest, Michael, who is a good friend of mine, and he creates some of the most amazing maps. And he's really well known in the Song of Ice and Fire community, and he met George R.R. Martin for a few times, and George R.R. Martin asks Michael for maps. So George R.R. Martin's house is full of Michael's maps. So he really does amazing Song of Ice and Fire maps, but he now started doing Middle-earth maps, and he promised me to do a Numenor one. So I'll invite him and talk about, because for Tolkien it all started with a map and language, obviously. But I will interview him and have him on my channel next week. So everybody interested in that, please come by.
Yep, and all those links will be in the description below, so please go and check them all out. And of course, Nikki, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm sure by now the viewers mostly know who you are, but if you want to quickly go through everything.
Yeah, I suppose I can do that. I don't think I've actually gone through everything before with me. I have a YouTube channel, but it's mostly just me messing around with all sorts of stuff that I can't really decide what I'm doing with it. I just like making content. I'm an actress, as you guys all know, so I am on Instagram, I am on Twitter, and I'm also now on TikTok, and I'm growing there, which is quite cool. And yeah, Fellowship will post all of my links as well. So if you guys want to check me out, I'd appreciate it, and thank you. And I promise lots of cool content. I'm cosplayer and gamer as well, so I stream on Twitch and I dress up in costumes and have fun most of the time. So that's just me. Yeah.
But to everybody at home, thank you guys for watching. Also, having said thank you to all my panel guests, yes, thank you for all coming on. Really appreciate you've had. Everyone here is so knowledgeable, and I think we've had such a lovely and great discussion about it. And it also shows our excitement for the show as well. So truly thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This has been a blast.
Bye-bye.
Indeed. But thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. But until the next video, my friends, goodbye.